that we're having this morning.
And we're joining Jeffrey, so
So, Jeffrey, what do you have for us?
Yeah, we're waiting for you guys to come through so that we get our conversation started. A lot of people are wondering what this is really all about, as far as this is concerned. But the number is just mind-boggling. 150,000 square meters, I guess so. But what is important to people is the 753 duplexes that were seized by the EFCC. And there are some legalese around it. The most important thing now is that property belongs to the government. Whatever the government wants to do with it is different. It's a different kettle of fish. So that's why I want to have this conversation with everybody involved as far as this is concerned. We're going to be joined on the program by 3 individuals, but let's say 2 are available to talk to us at the moment. A National Inspirator Trainer, Action Aid Nigeria. Joining us from our Abuja studio is Josephine Adoku, as well as Olufolayan Awoyemi, legal practitioner at Justice Development and Peace Commission, joining us from Ibadan. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you. You're welcome. Good morning, Nigerians.
Seizure, or not seizure now, forfeiture that we've, EFCC calls it the single largest asset recovery by the Commission. 753 duplexes. Although they did not disclose the name, but we've seen documents to the effect that is related to an individual and all of that. Maybe your first impression when you saw this scale of recovery by the government. Josephine?
Thank you so much, and it's so lovely to be here, and cases of corruption is one that's it's very passionate to me, because we see the ills that happens, and then of course our justice system. But however, the recent forfeiture of the property that was seized by the EFCC, I think, is one of hope, and I think it's a commendable step by the EFCC. The fact that they have even decided to bring this to the public domain is commendable in the first place. However, when I was following the case, I would expect that at some point I was eager to see the name of this person, who did this thing. When I read through that case, I think the most I saw was the property address and all of that. So yeah, as much as I commend the EFCC, for their efforts in fighting corruption, I still think a lot of work needs to be done in properly ensuring that the accountability process is transparent enough to give us the opportunity to track cases, so that, in future times we look back and we are able to reference, situations like this to say, when so-so person did something like this, they were penalized and this was the punishment, and all of that. And I think in Africa, it's been a trend where people just easily get away with corruption. The case of Jacob Zuma of South Africa, we saw how he was charged with only 15 months, even though the allegation was that he was getting kickbacks from arms deal. One would think that a crime of such magnitude, would expect more. And then there's also the case of Prince Talon of Benin, who was also charged, for the cotton subsidy embezzlement, fraud. And yet, he was charged in absentia for 20 years. And this person later came back to the country to become a president. I do think that this goes to show, our value system in Africa in general. And when you look at other crimes, for instance, the recent sentence of the China, I think the China Prime Minister also of tobacco, right? Their tobacco, States of China Tobacco Administration, who was also sentenced to death and was given 2 years reprieve. For me, that shows that that is a country where it is clear that corruption is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Bringing it back to Nigeria, I do think that as much as they are taking the step to fight corruption, we are hopeful that the process will be truly accountable, will be transparent, and then we are able to see what kinds of punishments are being, meted out on people. We also have the case of Yaya Bello, and when I want to talk about Yaya Bello, I would like to link it with the disparity in our justice system. You see a case where when it is the young people, the kinds of punishment that they get is sometimes not commensurate to that of the powerful, the people in power. And then when it is those in power, you see that they are free and then they get away with some of these things. So for me, I do think that if Yaya Bello is still working very free, then it shows a lot about our justice system. EFCC had claimed earlier that Yaya Bello is in hiding, and to further prove EFCC wrong, Yaya Bello did not just, come to say, I am not hiding. He went as far as walking past the office of the EFCC, making a video and pictures and posted online to say, I am not hiding.
All right, Josephine, if I may
and this is somebody
just
that
for
has
a
been
moment.
accused of coughing out 80 billion
if you can hear me,
from Kogi State coffers.
All right, just for the record, the issue of Yaya Bello is still a subject of adjudication, but I'm sure people understand the premise, given the drama that greeted his eventual arrest and prosecution. Let me take you to Awoyemi on this particular one. EFCC is saying it is action in rem instead of action in personam. What they are saying in legalese is simply to say we're going after the property, we're not going after the person or entity. But Nigerians are feeling like, do you also belong to that school of thought that believes that 753 duplexes, somebody, according to EFCC, got it from illicit fund or unlawful means, and then we don't have a name to that effect? Do you feel that EFCC should do more beyond this legalese to tell us who exactly this belongs to?
All right. Good morning, Nigerians, and thank you for having me. Well, when I saw the news yesterday over the week, my first thought about that is, wow, okay, they brought out another news for us to live with as Nigerians. But as a lawyer, one of my thoughts is that what did they follow the due process of law? What does the law say about the acts of the EFCC? Did they do anything outside the law? And for forfeiture, the law, according to the offense that they press statement, is the Advanced Fee Fraud Act 2006. And Section 17 of the Act speaks basically about this issue of forfeiture. And of course, the Act says that where any property has come into the possession of any officer of the Commission as unclaimed property, or any at this person's property is found by any officer of the Commission to be of any person, body, corporate organization, and it goes on and on like that. Now, under the law, under Section 17 of this law, now unclaimed property are properties that it is difficult to link it directly with the owner. For instance, if I have a property in Abuja or I have a property in Lagos, definitely my name will be attached to it. But if there is a property the EFCC feels there are some things in secrecy about the real owner of that property, the EFCC, by virtue of being a law enforcement agent, has the power under this law to go to court and then, of course, file an application ex parte in court. Now, that application, once the court grants that application, then after 14 days, the person that owns the property, if the property has an owner, the person who owns the property will come forward and says, look, this property is mine. It is not that it is not known. This is how I got my property. This is how I paid for it. This is how I became the owner. And then the EFCC will then know that this property is known by someone. And then definitely other processes of the law will follow. But if after a while they have filed that application and nobody comes out to claim that he is the owner of that property, by virtue of this law, the EFCC will then go back to that court for this order of forfeiture. So the question we should ask ourselves as Nigerians is that, as anybody, when the EFCC filed that ex parte application, as anybody or did anybody come out to say he is the owner of such properties? If I did not come out to say that I am the owner, don't forget that the law says an unclaimed property. It means that EFCC will not be the one to say that the property is owned by X, Y, Z. If by virtue of the fact of the application first of all filed in court, if it has an owner, the owner should have come forward, to come and say that property is mine. The law does not empower EFCC or any law enforcement agent to specifically disclose the owner of that property by virtue of this law. But I understand the plight of Nigerians that, yes, for the essence, for the purpose of transparency, and because, like what the other speaker said, because of the kind of country we found ourselves, this seems like a very big news, and I understand that it is good to marry that property with an owner. But by virtue of what the law says, it is not a necessary requirement. And perhaps that was why EFCC did not even feel it to attach that property to a specific owner. Because what the law only says that they should file that application, which I believe they have done before they came out with this press statement. So the point I want to make is that,
can you hear me?
Yes, EFCC has done this,
Mr.
but the issue on ground is that...
Mr. Woyemi, if you can hear me. But in the case where court documents reveal that indeed in the affidavit entered into names of testifiers who have admitted transfer of proceeds to the clients that got monies for payment of these properties, and the names of those making the payments, in those cases where we have such court documents as evidence, does the EFCC still reserve the right to quote legalese, as Jeffrey has said, as action in rem, to conceal the identity of the property owner, where we have court documents stating to the contrary?
All right, thank you. Don't forget, like you said, that action in court is in rem. In rem means it is against that property itself, not against a person or the owner. So the issue on ground, the issue in court specifically is the property, not the owner of that property, because it's a very thin line. It's a very thin line, and that is why a lot of the people are talking, which is good, which is nice, which will make us to have a clearer objective of what EFCC actually is doing or wants to do. So that action specifically is against that property, like I said earlier on. But if there are documents or if there are names, like you rightly said, in court, that shows that that property belongs to X, Y, Z, or ABC, or EFD, two things are involved. Number one, don't forget that that property, I'm sure EFCC got into this particular situation because of their investigation. Okay, and once the names are in court and there is proof that the properties are owned by X, Y, Z, it is still not the duty of the EFCC to disclose that property. The court documents are public documents, for crying out loud. So if anybody has issue to say this property belongs to, and of course it's already it's in public domain, we are already seeing that they are saying that property belongs to some people, it belongs to some people. But the question, like I said earlier on, is that those people, they have not come out to say the property belongs to them. And if a property does not belong to me, you cannot come out and say this property is mine. Perhaps I've even denied it under investigation. Because again, don't forget that the reason why we started this investigation in the first place is that the process of which I acquired that property is questionable. It's a process of crime is involved, money is involved, and there are a couple of millions of dollars that are involved in this particular process. So when issues come,
because
it
of time,
is very likely that the owner has come to deny that he is the owner.
Let me come in here quickly because of time. You say in law that you cannot build or put something on nothing. So this forfeiture, this seizure, what have you, did not happen in isolation. All people are asking for is transparency and accountability. How did we get to this point? It didn't just drop naturally. The list the EFCC could have done, according to some people, is give us how we got here. So this forfeiture was made as a result of a case we instituted or a case we're pursuing against this person or these group of people or this company. That's all they're asking for, rather than just drop it on us without context. And I know you understand how important context is in law. And that's all people are asking for. Nobody's saying declare someone guilty or not, or say this person owns it. Let us know how we got here. We didn't just arrive here. But we'd like to expand the conversation, Mr. Olufola Awoyemi. We're joined by policy analyst right here in our Lagos studio, Mr. Superiala Mbere. You're welcome to the Morning Brief.
Nice to be here.
I know that you're quite active on social media, so you must have seen all of the back and forth on this. As a Nigerian who's been following the fight against corruption, particularly under the new leadership of the EFCC, a lot of people have commended for the approach. He's gotten flack as well. How do you place this particular forfeiture and the questions raised around it?
It's quite unfortunate that those in public office, have taken to this type of action. Public office is, you hold public office in trust for the people. Unfortunately, as you said, that these things didn't drop from heaven. People in the system had, access to public funds and used it to purchase these property. The asset forfeiture is, is commendable. And but at the end of the day, you cannot say that. I would refrain from saying that because documents have emerged. Yesterday, Showore, and Sahara reporters had some documents, court documents and filings. I'm not a lawyer, but at least that was the allegation of the EFCC that the past central bank governor and his people had a hand in the property. But the company linked to the central bank governor has said they do not have a hand in the property. So I think the best thing, what the EFCC has done is to seize the property and bequeath it to the federal government, which is the only, it's the only thing they could have done, because I don't, someone is saying I don't own the property. So what then do? You have to okay, you don't own the property, let's have the federal. So it's a welcome development, the fact that that property has been handed, the court has finally forfeited the property to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and obviously to the federal government. But the conversation goes deeper than just forfeiture of assets. Now, we look at public office and public officers as those who are in a position to serve. But unfortunately, the situation we find ourselves in Nigeria at the moment is that public officers are there for themselves. It's a fundamental problem, and a fundamental problem that has, causative effect or causative, factors. And public office holders are Nigerians. When you speak to Nigerians, you ask, most Nigerians, someone said on social media, most Nigerians are not even against corruption. They're just angry they are not benefiting from it. So what is the ideology? What's the idea?
Is that backed by data? Is there a survey that was conducted and most Nigerians?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I said someone said on social media.
Okay, so it's not backed
it's not backed by data. But I'm saying it's the perception of the person that most Nigerians are not against corruption. They just want to benefit. So when they don't benefit, there's a problem. But the point is, people always wait when they get into office to steal. it didn't start now, but there's a fundamental problem. What is our idea of a society? What's our idea of public service? Is it to enrich ourselves, or is it to serve the people? You know?
Membry, let's take it back to Josephine. Josephine, you know, I'm smiling because one of the reasons we're having this conversation is that it looks like there are different laws for different sets of people, for the haves and the haves not. And it's almost, I understand the legalese, and I think every educated person understands action in rem, action in personam, and what all the legalese says. But somebody bought, like I was saying, somebody paid for the land. A company was contracted to design those buildings. A company started building. We have GIS. We have the Nigerian states unable to find the owner of this property. See the sequence in which, you know, the process of getting land in Nigeria and eventually building to the point where we have it, and we can't find the owner. At least if somebody is saying, this is not my property, okay, what about the guy that was contracted? Can't we find him to say, who gave you this contract? So, these are the things that Nigerians look at and like, are we playing? If this was a poor man, are we going to be having this conversation? Josephine, I need your response.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I was smiling when you were, talking because, that's the pure fact of the situation we have in Nigeria, where there are different laws for different people. And the question you ask is a very valid one. So if the owner is saying, I am not the owner, or the perceived owner is saying, I'm not the owner, then who are the people who are contracted to do this, and who contracted them to do the work on the land? But, beyond that, we've also seen in Nigeria that when it comes to young people, you see EFCC, going all out and showing that they can actually get people and persecute them. We have seen cases of young people, including celebrities, that has also been sent to prison. We have Naira Marley's Lantern. Those people were sent to prison for being affiliated or for allegedly being charged with 11 count internet fraud. Yes, and they went to prison. The recent case of the cross-dresser, Bobrisky, they said he abused the Naira, and he went to prison. Later on, we heard that it also affiliated with money laundering and all. But what was clear in the public domain was that this person abused the Naira. So this is not to justify crime, but we also need to get to a point where we begin to build patriotism through our accountability process. The continuous repetition of this selective justice is beginning to erode the trust that people have, especially young people, in the system. And there's been the impact. We have been feeling the impact. In the past couple of days, months, we've had several uprisings in Nigeria. Yes, apart from the hunger, which is also part of the causes of the irresponsibilities of this fraudulent acts by the people we have trusted with our public treasury. Right? We have seen all of those uprisings, but part of it is because we have lost faith in our justice system. We're in an era where justice in Nigeria belongs to the highest bidder. And that's why people would confidently tell you to go to court if you are aggrieved about something. And the last case of election was a classical example. I was talking about Yaya Bello earlier. Yaya Bello, EFCC is claiming that Yaya Bello is in hiding. And Yaya Bello is saying, I am not hiding. He went as far as walking through the office headquarters of the EFCC, took a picture and video, and posted on social media for us to see. He is further making caricature of the whole, system. So I think we have a lot to do in our accountability system, which also boils down to the justice system. No Nigeria, this is a slogan for me, that no Nigeria is more Nigerian than another Nigerian. And we have seen cases where it seems as though people in power are above the law. So, and that's why we will continue to see repetition of cases where when it is the young people, then we can now charge them. EFCC gives them the placard, they take picture, and we see their faces everywhere. We see their names plastered everywhere. But now we cannot even identify the owner of this property. We want to see the name. We want to track. We want to be able to refer to this case to say, yes, EFCC ensured justice was served.
All right, and it begs the question, because funds were transferred to, a developer began work. There should be an identifiable developer. There should be monies traceable to accounts. Speaking of which, should we begin to, and I'm bringing this to you, Mr. Soprella, in our studio, should we begin to take a second look, at our financial systems to ensure that, as Jeffrey has said, there are no laws for big people, and there are some certain laws for smaller people, quote and unquote. Because if you looked into the court documents, the accounts are traceable. There are people that are identifiable. If those court documents can be tenable to use to trace indeed who it is that has purchased this monies. And monies we're talking about are to the tune of 900 million naira, 2 billion naira, if you looked at the court documents. So should we take a second look yet again, relatedly, at our assets declaration law, particularly for politically exposed persons?
The Code of Conduct Bureau is in charge of collating assets of public office holders, and this is part of the function of that body. And you're talking about, you made mention of the assets of public office holders being made public. The truth is that at the end of the day, when you're a public office holder, you are beholden to the public. Whatever you have as an asset or liability is no longer yours, but that's of the public in terms of the information, so that the public can make informed decisions. So it is plausible to say that there is a need for us to look at our laws in terms of, and also not just looking at our laws, but enforcement. Our problem in this country has never been with our laws, but enforcement. Those who are in charge of enforcing those laws. I want to believe, and I'm not a lawyer, we have a lawyer here, part of the panelists, but I want to believe that even citizens could bring legal action to get to know who is behind all these transactions. The EFCC, now there's a clamor, who has these assets? People want to know. And you can't say, as Josephine made mention of the fact that there seems to be a law for the rich, and when I mean the rich, I'm talking of those who are politically exposed, and then there seems to be another law for those who do not have the political connection. And with that mindset, what do people do? They always want to get into public office not to serve, because apart from having access to public funds, public office is also seen as a way to hide assets, to sort of make use of the influence of the office to cover up nefarious activities or malfeasance, before now, and that's before entering into office and whilst in office. So there's a need for us to not only think out with our laws, but ensure that enforcement, is put at the front burner, and also citizen engagement. Citizens should engage, both as you've done, the media houses, but also by using the instrumentality of the law.
All right. Now that you talk about the law, let's go to Olufalaon. You talked about him earlier on, and wind down with your point, Olufalaon. I mean, a lot of people have been following cases in other parts of the world. Joseph mentioned the case of China State Tobacco Monopoly Company, which is like the country's regulator for tobacco. The former deputy head sentenced to death. Vietnamese property tycoon also sentenced to death as a result of corruption. Right. So is it a challenge with our laws? And let's begin to wind down. Is it the laws, the enforcement, or what exactly is it as we begin to wind down?
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm so happy about this question. I think the challenge is actually our justice system. The justice system, definitely in Nigeria, has a lot of challenges facing it. And some of the speakers over there have said it seems as if we have two different types of law, one for the rich and one for the poor. And sometimes it seems like that. And I will give you an example also of this same EFCC. For instance, you have seen EFCC several times taking up cases of the people they call Yahoo boys. Okay? And in recent times, they come, they arrest them, and they end up in plea bargaining with this Yahoo boys. And the EFCC will come forward and say now that they now have 10,000 convictions. They have 5,000 convictions. These are convictions based on plea bargaining, not based on trial. That's number one. Number two, we have also seen EFCC becoming a debt recovery agent. I'm owing you 100 million, I'm owing you 50 million, and the first point of call I will go to is the EFCC. And they will go ahead and arrest me and then take up actions against me. And we have several judicial authorities that have said that EFCC is not a debt recovery agent. Any law enforcement, EFCC, police, all of them, they are not debt recovery agents. And they go ahead, they arrest just for owing debt, just because the money involved is much.
All right, Mr.
All these things, all this goes ahead and distracts them from their primary responsibility, which is recovery of public funds. And that is what people are saying, that it seems to have two different types of law. It is because of the way the law is being implemented.
All right, Mr. Awoyemi, that's a very good place to land on this particular thought. We don't have so much time anymore. We apologize. We know you have a lot to say. Olufalayo Awoyemi, legal practitioner, Justice Development and Peace Commission, joining us from Ibadan via Zoom. Josephine Adoku, National Inspirator, Trainer, Action Aid Nigeria, joining us from Abuja studio, as well as Soprala Membri, Policy Analyst right here in our Lagos studio. Gentlemen and lady, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, our correspondent and anchor, businessman himself, Ladi Williams, will join us for trending with what is going on in the stock market as well as the financial sector. Join us again.